Hello, I'm Neil Clark from St Giles Church. We've just had Easter and all the celebrations there, but I still feel we need some good news the whole year round. So I want to tell you a good news story and the good news that Jesus brought. I'm going to tell you a story I first heard at Spring Harvest, a Christian festival, told by Rob Parsons, a great speaker. And one or two of you have heard it before, but it doesn't diminish because of that. The story concerns a young boy called Paul, who lived in America, on the plains of America, wide open spaces and remote communities. And he remembers that his house was one of the first to get a phone in that area. And this was in the 40s and 50s. And to use the phone, you had to pick it up, take it off the receiver, turn the handle to make it work. And he saw his mother doing this, and she would phone something called information, please. And she'd say, information, please. And the operator would say, this is information. And the operator could tell her the time, the weather, or the number that she wanted. We're so used to nowadays having the internet and all those facilities available to us, we forget that at one time, this would be the only way of finding things out other than listening to the radio. Anyway, one day, when he was 9, this boy was alone in the house and he was hammering and he banged his thumb. And he thought, well, there's no point in crying because mum and dad aren't about. But he needed to do something because it hurt. And then he thought of the phone. He wandered over, picked up the receiver, which he wasn't normally allowed to use, turned the handle and said, information, please. And the lady said, this is information. And he said, I banged my thumb. And she said, oh dear, is your mother at home? No. Is your dad at home? No. Can you get to the ice box? Yes. Well, go and put some ice on it. That will make it feel better. So he went to the ice box and it did make his hand feel better. And he said, after that, I phoned information, please, for everything. She helped me with my geography homework. She told me where Philadelphia was. She helped me how to spell disappear. And one day, when my canary died, I phoned her up and said, how could God let such a beautiful thing that sings so wonderfully die? And she said, what you've got to remember is that there are other worlds in which to sing. Now, shortly after that, his family moved to New York, and he didn't think that information, please, would live in this new plastic telephone, so he stopped calling. But one day when he was 28, he was going to a conference and he had a stopover at an airport really near where he used to live. And on a whim, he picked up the phone and said, information, please. And the familiar voice said, this is information. So he hesitated for a moment and said, can you tell me how to spell disappear? And the lady at the other end chuckled and said, I should think that thumb is better by now. He told her how important she'd been to him when he was young. And she said, but you don't know how important you were to me. Because my husband and I couldn't have any children. I really look forward to your phone calls coming through. She said, my name's Mary. I'm quite old and I only work a couple of hours now, but ring me up from time to time and we can chat. And over the next few months, he phoned her up and they caught up with all the things that had happened when he was young and since then. And then one day he phoned up and said, information, please. And the voice came back, this is information, but it wasn't the familiar voice. And he said, sorry. Is Mary there, please? And she said, I'm terribly sorry, but Mary died 2 days ago. She was very old and she only worked a few hours. He said, oh, thank you. I was just going to put the phone down when the woman said, is that Paul? And he said, yes, it is. Oh, Mary gave me a message. She said, if you called and something had happened to you, I had to tell you that always remember there are other worlds in which to sing. And he knew it was true. And it's something that I know to be true and has helped me in my life. Because although it's 2,000 years since Jesus died, he died to conquer death and sin. And it means that we need no longer fear death because death isn't the end. And that's the good news, that Jesus, by coming and dying on the cross, saved us from the fear of death and took away all our sin by taking it onto himself. Now, we will lose people and we'll be sad, and that's natural. But I take comfort in the fact that I know that they're not lost forever, but they're in heaven waiting for me. And that one day, hopefully, if I can keep good, I'll join them in heaven. So when you're saddened by the loss, through Jesus, always remember there is now another world in which to sing. See you soon. Goodbye.